In this tutorial I'm going to cover the subject of color space. You've probably heard of the sRGB color space, Adobe 1998. So what does all this entail, and why is it important for Pictures to Exe? Well, if you've got this slide here, you can see this oval shaped area. This represents the different colors that the human eye is capable of perceiving. And of course all these colors are created through the combination of red, green and blue RGB colors. The eye has got cones, light sensors that are each responsive to red, green and blue light. The same as digital cameras, computer monitors, they all behave in the same way. Now, in order to represent the different colors in a digital file, a color space, a coding, an encoding is created and embedded in a file. And long ago, when computers were just coming online, a color space called sRGB was created. And if we look at this diagram here, we can see that the color space is a triangle within our cone of color here, but it only represents about half of the possible colors that the human eye is capable of perceiving. And this was quite adequate for the technology at the time. A bit later on, Adobe brought out what's called Adobe 1998 RGB, and this encompassed a greater amount of potential colors that a picture could contain. And now we have ProPhoto RGB, which is an even larger color space, and that encompasses most of the visual range that the human eye can see. Now, as well as being smaller and larger, each one of these codings manipulates light in slightly different ways. Now, when it's all rendered on the computer correctly, the images look very similar. However, if the program that you're using thinks that it's using sRGB and it's actually getting an RGB, an Adobe 1998 file or a ProPhoto RGB, then the colors will look different. And in this slide here, we can see this is obviously in Pictures to Exe because that's what we're looking at now. This is an sRGB file and the colors look correct. That is how it should be rendered. However, Pictures to Exe isn't able to render or to correctly render pictures brought in with a different attached color space. Now, this is been processed using Adobe 1998, and you can see the colors are more muted, it's flatter on that. ProPhoto RGB is even worse. It's a very flat sort of image. Now, if these were viewed in Photoshop, which can understand these additional color spaces, these would look even better than the sRGB color that we can see here. But Pictures to Exe can't do that. So we need to make sure that all of the images brought into Pictures to Exe is of the sRGB color space. Now, Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw are used to use with a raw file to well, we need to make sure that they're set up so that we eventually get an sRGB image. So if we go to Photoshop, first of all, you may be familiar with, if you go to Edit, you've got Preferences. Now, you may be familiar with some of these things, but also in this menu, we've got Color Settings. Okay. Now, this describes how Photoshop will handle color. And generally, if you haven't changed any of this, this will be how it's defaulted to, how it's set up when you install it. It will be defaulted to North American General Purpose 2, and the working color space is sRGB, which is that small color space we saw in the previous slide. Now, normally I would be working in a color space of ProPhoto RGB, which is that one there. And of course, you can save the way you're going to work by clicking Save and saving it as a default there, as a new setting. I'm going to leave that as sRGB for now, but to say I would really recommend that you change these, and it is covered in some of my other tutorials. But the important thing is down here, color management policies. Now, if we have preserve embedded profiles, that means that no matter what we've got set up here, if we go back to maybe that one there, if it's brought in with an sRGB color space, it will preserve that embedded profile irrespective of what our default working space is. So you need to ensure that preserve embedded profiles is selected for the sRGB. These ones here are for CMYK if you're dealing with a CMYK or a grayscale. So these aren't really relevant for what we're talking about, but that is really important. Also, if you've got profile mismatch, what you don't really want is it coming up with an error message every time. So I make sure that these are unchecked apart from missing profiles. That is really important. If you've got a missing profile, you need to know about that. So I'm going to select custom, save. Let's shrink that so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to call that pictures to exe. So this is my own setting. If I'm going to create pictures to exe, PTO, pictures to exe files. Click OK. And now if we go back into color settings, you can see it's listed there, pictures to exe default. Okay. So now we've set up without any images being on the screen, of course, that is the way Photoshop will now handle any images. Now if we go back to Bridge, open up one of these images, so Control R on that one, it will open it up into Camera Raw, and down at the bottom here, this is our working space or workflow options. We need to ensure that when it's sent, like open image down there, it's sent to Photoshop, it's sent as an sRGB file. Also 8 bits per channel, because we're going to create a JPEG file. These are sticky settings, so once we've set that, that will remain until we change it again. So now if we open that into Photoshop, all happening in real time here, and if we go to Edit, Convert to Profile, it will actually show us in our little box here the source space is sRGB. Okay, I'm just going to cancel that, but we can actually, this is a good way of converting spaces if you need to, but the source space is sRGB, which is okay. So now all we need to do is edit it, save it as a JPEG file, and we know the color space will be correct.